I'm an osteopath and I'm a CrossFit coach, and I've been doing CrossFit for probably about 8 years or so, 8-9 years. And I started with my friend in a park. Just used to use a kettlebell that we took and a pull-up bar, and luckily enough I've been able to move up with the growth of the sport. I don't think there's a secret. I think the one thing that I've become better at doing is creating an environment where people can get better. And I actually think that's the one thing that is really important, is creating that environment. And I don't think there is one secret, there's lots of small steps that have to be taken. And I think the one thing that helps is, I have a vision of getting people to the games and winning the games, and I'm very passionate about that. And the one thing I want to do is create an environment where those athletes can thrive in that environment, and the last few years have been very successful in that regard. They need, back in the early days of CrossFit, it was really just how much you wanted it could get you to the games. But now really you have to have the genetic potential to get there. You have to be strong. You have to have good capacity. You have to move well, and you have to be able to pick up skills quite quickly. And then you have to combine that with work ethic. Then I think actually a third thing is that you need a good team around you. Like, the sport's evolved so much that you really just can't be a lone ranger anymore. You've got to have a good support network, supportive people, family, coaches, financial support. All these things play a factor now. So, you can't just be that. There are some diamonds in the rough, but they really do need to be supported and taken out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's true. I think the one thing with Sara this year is she was the most consistent athlete. Her consistency had improved a lot. And the hard thing at the games, you don't know the events that you're preparing for. So every athlete, every coach is taking that risk in terms of what they're preparing. And if we'd have known the events, we'd have had her running more. And I think that was one of the biggest factors, that her running ability wasn't good enough for this year's games. And there were a couple of mistakes, but I think all in all, if her running had been at a sufficient level, she could have taken that top spot. But it just means that we work harder this year. Like, we've always been very clear in our objective with Sara, and that is to win the games. Not just once but multiple times, and we just keep working towards that goal. I actually think this year's games was a lot easier for the athletes. So last year, it was hard. After the Friday after Murph, people coming in on stretchers, it was like a war zone really. And after that, it was pure will to hang on. People were just hurting, sore, and it was just about who wanted it. Whereas this year, you didn't really have that same event which just took everyone out. It was fun that they flew to the ranch and those things. I think it was kind of hard for the spectators. A lot of people pay thousands of dollars to go to the games, and people can't see them compete. It's fun for the athletes, but I don't think it's the best thing for spectators. They fly thousands of miles to see their favourite athletes, and they can't watch them. So I think that was a bit harsh. But it was good games, and I don't think it was as hard as last year. And I think certain athletes enjoy that aspect. I know that I do. I enjoy seeing hard games, and I enjoy seeing that aspect of willpower coming through and people having to fight a bit more. I think the plane ride was a big shock. So it literally, you have no clue what's going to happen. We arrived. The athletes that I was with, we arrived to the hotel. I think it was 4 a.m. we had to be there. So we're up at 3:30, 3 o'clock, airport, and then Castro takes all the athletes into a room and says, "Get one bag, you're going on a plane." And this is 4 a.m. still, and we're like, So then all the athletes go out on a plane. They still don't know what's happening. It's trail run, deadlift ladder, and the next event as well. And you have no clue. And then you wait the next day, and it's what time are we going to be starting? Is there more events? But the whole time, you just have no idea what is happening. It really is just, you have to be prepared for everything.
Yeah.
And I think some people, have the idea that they must know the schedule of the events, but we didn't even know there was an event on Thursday until Wednesday night. We probably had like 5 hours sleep, 4 hours sleep that night because the plane was late, then had to be up for the swim. So that's why I like the test in some ways. It is that unknown component that you're testing more than just someone's ability. You test them to be able to deal with stresses as well. I started the program to help support athletes. That was actually the original goal. And that's all I wanted to do, was be able to have athletes that I could support and take them to the level of the games. And it started really small. Just writing programs for athletes, and there'd be 2, 3 involved. And then what would happen is another athlete would go, "Oh, John, what's the program?" And I'd be like, "Oh, well, it's this. You can join if you want." And people started joining. And I had this big idea that we'd call it Entrenador, because the programming I write for Sara, we jokingly called it Entrenador, which is this Icelandic drive, the fire within, the passion. And that's what we call her program. And I was explaining this to people, we're going to call the program Entrenador. And I'd be like, what, Modu? And I was like, the program. And so it just stuck. And then we made the program public, and it just kept growing, and I want it to keep growing. The intention with the program is it to be the best generic program there is, and that is the intention behind it, is to still support athletes. And now we have a bit of a divide. So we have a 1 a day, which is, for people like myself, I'm not a competitive CrossFit anymore, but I still love CrossFit. I like to do CrossFit, I like to stay fit, I like to lift weights, I like to run. And so we have a 1 a day that involves that. And then we have the full program, and that is for competitors. It's a hard program, and we have certain methods that we believe work, and so it's quite, it's a hard program to follow. And the idea of that program is aimed at people going to regionals and going to the games. And this last year we had a number of people at regionals, and we had a number of people at games. And each year we just keep making it better, and that's how it started. Yeah, so it started from very small beginnings, and we still, the program still gets sent out in a PDF, and it's got it does have a nice community around it, and a nice group. And I really hope actually to bring it to Spain as well. I'm speaking to TJ about trying to translate it and bring it open to more people. I think it's a good question, and I think it's vital to have a coach who's with you in person. And one thing we do is we often work with coaches who have athletes as well. So the coach will say they follow the program and they work with their athletes to tweak it. We put lots and lots of hours each week, each month into the program. We have lots of experts who contribute. And then what the kind of hands-on coach does is can tweak that. And that is vital. It is a generic program, but we cover all the foundations extremely well, and then a coach can tweak it as to how they want a little bit to work with their athlete. And the simplest way is to you start with the 1 a day, and then you can progress into the full program. And our idea is to be able we're going to hold program only camps and just get our athletes involved so we can support them as they support us. One test.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the one we did this morning is a good test.
Yeah.
So it's a 5k row. But every 500 meters, you have to do 20 thrusters with 2 6-kilo dumbbells. Every 1,000 meters, you have to do 20 burpees. And you keep repeating that. So 1,500 meters, 20 thrusters, 2,000 meters, 20 burpees.
5 rounds.
Yeah, well, you do that until you finish the 5 kilometers. It's a good test. It's one of those nice tests where you've got good movements in there, and it's really testing your conditioning. So for the off season, which really takes us to December, we're going to be going to South America. And just there's a big interest over there, so we're going to be going over there. Really, the focus of this season is to get Sara to win the games and bring other athletes slightly higher up at the leaderboard. And the way we're going to do that is just create a good team around us. I think an important thing is it's not just me or one person. There's a team that supports me. I can support them, and And that's the one thing that we've realised, is that actually this group of people is a lot more beneficial than just having one person. And so that's our idea, is create a good team and, you know, get Sara to win the games and have our other athletes move up the ladder as well. Soy John Singleton y yo soy RX.